So you have your first patient scheduled for your very own dental startup practice. You're still a few days or weeks away from that first appointment, but you're a bit nervous and you want to make sure everything goes smooth for that first day. Well, I have a quick checklist for you to go through to make sure that you have everything together before seeing that first patient. Now, there are tons of things that you need to have completed before you see your first patient, but I'm going to assume that your construction, design, all that is completed and your IT is also in place. If you need this checklist printed, I've linked to it at the bottom of this video in the description, so make sure you download it. So let's start with the practice management software. Regardless of which system you use, whether it's Open Dental, EagleSoft, Dentrix, or whatever else, you need to make sure the software is set up to see the patient from check-in to check-out. Now, since the first appointment is already made, you want to make sure that appropriate procedures are attached to that appointment. You also want to make sure that the X-ray software bridge is set up properly with the PMS, so when you take X-rays, they're attached to that patient's chart. Next thing you want to think about is the patient coming in, does the patient have insurance or not? So if the patient on the schedule has insurance, you want to make sure the following things are in place. So first thing you need to do is you want to make sure the fee schedule for whatever insurance that patient has is entered into the PMS. You also want to make sure the patient's insurance is verified and the coverage percentages are entered into the PMS. This is to make sure that proper estimates are calculated when it comes to like copays, deductibles, etc. And for this to happen, you also need to make sure that correct fee schedule is attached to that patient's insurance. Your scheduling coordinator should also be aware of any out-of-pocket responsibility for the patient, such as deductibles and copays. And you also want to make sure the patient is aware of any out-of-pockets so there are no surprises when they walk in. Just like the X-ray software bridge that I mentioned earlier, you also want to make sure that you've signed up with the electronic claims service and you have a proper bridge set up into your PMS so your team can generate claims for procedures quickly. If the bridge is set up properly, your team should be able to generate the claim for the services rendered for that patient usually by a click of a button. So what about patients without dental insurance? If the appointment you have on your schedule is for a patient who doesn't have dental insurance, you need to make sure that patient is aware of your office fees. If you plan on having an in-office membership plan, which I strongly recommend you do, you want to make sure that patient is aware of what they will be paying out of pocket to join the membership plan and what they should expect to pay during that visit. Usually this should have been done when the appointment was made over the phone, because if the patient was asked of their insurance details and the patient mentioned that they don't have insurance, immediately your team should be informing them of, hey, yes, we do have an in-office membership plan that you can join and here's the fees, etc. Since we're talking about in-office membership plans, you also need to have an in-office membership plan sign-up form. It should be a very simple one-page form that lists the benefits of joining the plan and also should include any fine prints. Make sure to get the patient's signature as well as the date they're joining the plan, and you want to save it or scan it into the patient's chart. Let's talk about patient forms. Now, this may be self-explanatory. To see a new patient, you will certainly need new patient registration packet. You also should have consent forms. If that new patient appointment is for an emergency patient and let's say you need to do a root canal, well, you may need a consent form for a root canal. If it's for an emergency extraction, you do need a consent form for extraction. So make sure these things are in place. Financial policy and arrangement/agreement forms. Financial policy forms should be part of your new patient registration packet. So every new patient should be reviewing this and they should be aware of what your office policies are when it comes to finances and insurance. This is going to list out what treatment the patient needs and how the payments are to be arranged. Now, I've talked about this in detail in a separate video. The link should be somewhere along top of this video, but I'll also link to it in the bottom of this video in the description. So if you need more details on this, make sure you check out the video. Patient communication. Make sure you have a way to remind patients of their appointment. Even if you have one appointment on the schedule, whether it's a few days or weeks away, make sure you send them a text to remind them of their appointment and also to confirm the appointment. You also should send an email. If you have not invested into like a separate third-party appointment reminder software, that's okay, because you may not have the volume yet. Most of the voice over IP systems in the market today have a way to manually text patients. So your team should be able to send a text to the patient manually to remind them of their appointment and also to confirm the appointment. This is a preferred method of confirming appointments over email, because with email, you always risk email going to the spam folder and they may not even see it. Let's talk about patient checkout. Something simple, you need a credit card terminal to be able to accept payments from patients via credit card. As simple as it sounds, make sure your front desk is trained on how to use the credit card terminal, and make sure they also mark the payments once the credit card charge goes through. Make sure they enter the payment into the practice management software under the patient's account. Make sure your team knows how to print out a statement of services from your practice management software if the patient asks, and also be able to send an email of the statement of the work done today if the patient wants that. If the patient needs work and is scheduled to come back for another appointment to get the work done, make sure a financial agreement/arrangement form is signed and dated by the patient, and make sure you have a signed copy of this attached to the patient's chart. If the patient is only coming back for a recall, make sure you have an appropriate recall set up for that patient. For example, whether that patient is to come back every 4 months for the recall or 6 months, you want to make sure this is set up properly for that patient in the practice management software. So in future, when you need to run reports, your practice management system can run the reports properly and give you the list of patients, whether it's 4 months or 6 months. But regardless, your team should be pre-appointing that patient who is standing right in front of them for their next recall appointment. And that's it for this checklist. I wanted to keep this super short and simple and have it focused just on the most important systems for that patient's visit. That's it for today, guys. If you found this helpful, don't forget to subscribe. Share this with your colleagues and friends who may be in the same boat as you, who may be seeing their first patient in their very own startup dental practice. Until next time, take care and best of luck to you guys for seeing your first patient.